ascending. Well, if there's some, how can we know that? Do they stand out from the rest? Is there some sort of identifying mark, identifying characteristic that separate them from the ones who are human?
Those that are ascending that are female, short in the menses, do not have intuitiveness but have psychic ability, reproduce whatever they want when they want it, and again do not suffer from leukorrhea. Those that are males discover the mount in Gemini, understand Golgotha, the land of the skull, where many have failed and were crucified, and finds themselves beginning to open up in the astral at night, remembering their dreams in color, having visions of prophecy, and have usually always had contacts. They know themselves.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hotep, what's that?
My question is about Sirius B. Is it a star constellation or is it another star system or moon? That's basically my question.
Sirius B, if we go on the teachings of the Dogons and the Tuaregs and the Silures, are people who are generally of African ancestry, Negroid in nature and continents in this incarnation, and have continued the story of the amphibians that came from Lyra, Sirius. They state that once they were taught that they were here for a purpose, and was also meanings of, shall we say, the higher energies or higher rulers in the Sirius constellation to stand against the interference again from the Pleiadians. Then they also knew that once this was done, they would have direct passage back. Sirius B is an artificial sun created by higher intelligences. Sirius A was of the creator. They showed their ability to create suns, and therefore was sons of the sun, and could go on to the many higher heavens in the cosmos. Pretty much that is my understanding. Hotep.
I just have one question. Is the Caucasoid male mankind, or is he human or man?
One form of Caucasoid male was mankind and human, because human created mankind. Those teachings were of the underworld, which the Egyptians and Nubians tried to teach, which even the Teutonic people tried to teach, from those who separated themselves that came out of the caves of the Caucasoids and swept down upon man on earth. So there have been now 3 creations, none of which were supposed to be, all of which now have been given the curse of incarnation so that they could understand what it was like to interfere with creative wills. Consequently, we have now the ability to inhabit all 3 of those bodies, and many souls have had to do so. That's why now they hide back hypnosis and regression and try to tell you that again it is all subliminal. It is not. It is a record when the souls have had to enter into animal bodies, man bodies, and mankind. And so much so that they begin to create a thought form which does not even exist, that they could not progress, that they had to go through somebody, and therefore until that happened they were landlocked or earthbound.
Okay, so you're created from that and cannot ascend.
Pardon?
You're created from that type, you can't ascend?
No. We now know what soul inhabited one body at this time. Those souls that could come into a body that was not going to bind them or would be free to go forth in the end times came into certain bodies at this time. The male body is significant because it has the mound at the top. There are many so-called males on earth that do not have that.
The Darwin tribe mentioned that intelligence came in the form of an amphibious creature. I'd like to know if you can elaborate on that.
Only to the point that many of the amphibians came from both the system nearest the sun A in Osiris, there we go again, that slipped. but in Sirius, and Osiris was one of the, obviously, scientists that came from there, along with the sun B that was created for the humanoids made by the Sirians when they went too far. Thus, their mortal enemy of bad or negativity, who does not have creation of thought, but are masters of technology, the Pleiadians were allowed to gain interest to Earth. They came with them, of course, an animal species, which we could get into and won't, just as there's another form that also accompanies the Syrians called Lyrians. But at least it shows that there, no matter what form or humanoid form people take, the soul still is what counts. Pretty much it just showed that good and bad do exist. There's a professor at Kentucky State University who has successfully, since 1985, regrew regenerated limbs. I'll give you the general philosophy, which is that an amputated limb has rings just like a tree. Each concentric ring organizes and controls one of the bodies of man. The gland and the hormones follow that pattern that each of those rings has intact. We call in those rings the DNA and the RNA molecule. The catch is to know which one of these rings to stimulate at the time or close to the time of amputation. If that can be stimulated, the organ will try to reproduce itself, because on the etheric plane it still exists. But as the etheric or spirit plane dissolves and is then, what do they call it, when they put in these artificial, prosthetic devices per se, then we use the ability. The sensing is still there. That's why the person still feels they have the limb. The brain still wants to transmute material to it. But we have been severed from the correct hormonal secretions and the correct stimulus, which is magnetic, to do so. Electrical things will cause it to bud, but it will be deformed and different. Now they use neither. They use chemicals, cauterize it, which stops the regrowth of it, and add a prosthetic device. It has been proven many times that it can be done. The professor by the name is Smythe, and you could check his research. He's at Kentucky State University. He may or may not talk to you directly, but he'll probably reference you to his white papers, which he wrote upon it, which you can get at any library.
And the other question I was concerned about, our pastor spoke one time about
Please, not so slow, not so fast. Bend that little mic down to you again. You're thinking so very fast, I have to go into hyper gear to hear you. Okay.
I was talking about one who was called a lion-faced man, a boy, whichever.
A what kind?
Lion-faced boy or man.
Live-face?
Lion. Roar.
Lion. Thank you.
This lion-faced boy, actually, I understand that he actually existed, and that he was in a circus, and the pastor had seen him. And he also said the reason why the boy was dating the mother said that this occurred was that she was fighting wild lion and it depended on her. Now, I have wanted to find out, I see pictures of, because this was seemingly in the early part of this century. And I want to know where I go to find pictures of this lion going to face boy.
I have no idea where you would go to find the lion-faced boy. I do know that those stories about looking upon someone and coming out looking that way were used in the 17th century a lot by white women bearing black male children. I also understand that many black women bearing white children also said, because they were ashamed of what had happened, that this was the case. Worse than any of that are the gene splicings, DNA combatants that have created all kinds of creatures which do live on Earth. Some are in laboratories presently and as we speak at major universities throughout this planet, and I speak in truth. They have all kinds of captivities which they have created in laboratories that would turn your stomach. Worse than that, many of these captivities have souls, therefore they have knowledge of what they could have been or who they were. There's a lecture that I give called Gene Illogicals, which goes into great depth about that treatise. You're welcome. Understand, we're supposed to have one more lecture to follow. We can't stay here all night, so please, thank you, my brother.
Yes, just one question. What is the detriment of our continuing to think in the world of opposites?
In a world of opposites?
Yes, good and evil.
What is the deficit? Detriment. I think the detriment is pretty much what we see, which has pretty much reached fruition. If we always look for the extremes, we never look for the third force, which is the God force, which is a balance between the extremes. As long as we live in opposites and extremes, we must experience that which we think is real, the opposite of which, and therefore we never find a balance of which, and therefore we never progress. Already we have had too much good and bad, too much right and wrong, and not the middle path, which says right and wrong are only things to take you away from the return, which we are supposed to do, back to the mental molecule that created us.
Dr. Ben, I've been hearing about life under the earth. Can you shed any light on that? Is that in validity, in that there's life under the earth, people living under the earth?
That is not of this lecture, but in the point that it is, I will reference it. There is said to be in Amenta and in Agartha and in Shambhala a life form that was put upon the earth that was green, and from time to time is replaced on earth, and that life form was able to amalgamate successfully with mankind, producing a whole different kind of energies. The treatises have stated that there are both the smallest of my works in the earth as well as the largest. They are found again fibia and tibular bones that are over 18 feet long, stating that at one time on earth there may have been at least a 60-foot giant. There are dwarfs in sarcophagi that have complete formation that are no more than 3 inches, found in little caskets even here in the state of Colorado. The ancient ones, and of course amongst many of the Yoruba, and I will not go too further than that, talk of the Tobaluske, who are the little ones that can be summoned to do the bidding, who dwell only with man on earth. There's so many mysteries of earth, so each of these should be approached intelligently and on a different subject discussion. I think far too many times we go through so many of these things without understanding of any, therefore we get nowhere. The inner earth should be understood once we begin to understand what has happened on the earth. Yes, that there is an inner earth is a definite. Yes, that they have interfered and we have interfered with them is a definite, but now all things are under change. And that is a story, a lecture within itself, called The Hollow Earth, the Earth itself, which I have on tape, and the Twin Earth. Okay. Yeah.
Dr. Blair, if I was interested in researching for further information and insight on this subject matter, where would you suggest that I start?
On the whole subject matter?
Generally speaking about the original orientation of man and woman's existence here on the earth, and how other planets, beings, so to speak, have had a direct connection with the existence of man on earth.
it would be somewhat difficult for, let me answer that one please first. It would be somewhat difficult to select one book that would teach this. This is probably one of the problems, for they separated the books at OWN, the last library that was devastated. They renamed it, of course, what do they call this guy's name that came in there? Alexandrian Library. It was called the Library at OWN at Pergamo, one of the last ones, which had the books in text, even about the wars of the Lord and the books of Abijah and the book of Jihad and so on and so forth. To find it now, you'd have to belong to some secret society that thinks you're worthy, or be able to get into some of the research areas, or probably after this year, or maybe even this year, because it is a heck of a turning year, maybe at health research again. There are numerous books, one of which could be The Great Red Dragon, another of which could be the book of Shambhala. Most of the books of Professor Hilton Otima have references within it, but the books were not given freely to the public. And although that rule is changing, it is not just in one book. There are a compilation of books and journals and so on and so forth. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Blair.
Good evening.
I was wondering if you can go into the effects of drugs on man and his ascension or his ascending, whether any drugs, they do have negative effects or positive effects, and how drugs are used in our society to keep man from ascending to his higher power.
That is an entirely different lecture. That lecture is called Drugs and the Astro. I just tried to give it away at $9.95. I hope that somebody would buy it. To simply bypass that, and because it is connected with man, I would say that man has a gland that leads directly to the pineal pituitary that can be gained through the access to the roof of the mouth. Essences is what causes that gland to arise, not solid food substance. And dreaming and thinking causes it to activate and begin to dream and think for him on the higher heavens. Therefore, it connects him directly with the higher heavens, which is governed by thought. Drugs kill thought, and drugs control that gland for man, and man becomes a zombie and slave rather than a higher being, and becomes less than the animals. That is why drugs are given, and that is what melanin is now fighting against, as it's being reactivated through the ozone break and the higher energies now coming back to Earth. Okay, are there any other questions or comments at this time on man? And let us not forget children. Okay, then I'd like to move, if I may, into the concept of man. But one thing I did leave out, and how I did that, I don't know, but things happen. So consequently, I want to correct that. In finishing the woman lecture, I gave you only one gland that was erroneously reported, and that is the three-lobed thyroid rather than the two-lobed thyroid. The three-lobe belongs to woman. What is not talked about at all are two of the female glands that are still there, one in almost an atrophied state, the one that can be renewed. To preface that, I'd like to give a whole minute's talk about mitochondrial DNA. This is for those who want proof, and for those others, again, who are on the borderline, then you'd have to study mitochondrial DNA. There are two DNAs now talked about in genetic, circles. Mitochondrial DNA and nuclear DNA. Nuclear DNA is in general a mixture of both parents' genes. Mitochondrial DNA is again a inherited gene from only one, and that is the mother. It is altered again by what they call mediation, and when that happens again, it leads to racial differences. They now can genetically prove that there is one mitochondrial DNA that may be the mother of all human life on Earth. But for nuclear DNA, it takes radiation to bring it about. When radiation is entered upon the womb, then certain glands in the female will begin to undergo mitosis on their own. This is why for a long time women were told to avoid direct sunlight and especially moonlight, which would cause mitosis on a lower energy level. The two glands are these. I'll repeat them one time and I'll spell them once. They are the epiphyseal. It is between the uterus and the ovary and the mesosyphics. It is spelled E-P-O-O-P-H-O-R-O-N. The other is the paraphyseal. It produces seminal fluid and seminal secretions just like a male, so-called. It is spelled P-A-R-O-O-P-H-O-R-O-N and is below the mesosyphics. That concludes the woman lecture. In dealing with the final lecture tonight, that of children or child, I find it probably one of the most interesting because a child or a children is what is called an incomplete. It is one that is waiting for maturity to become either a male or female, man or woman. That state in between is when each soul undergoes a chance or opportunity to learn from those who have either previously misused it or whose previously existence it did not know and did not have the opportunity to learn from. Children or child, or what they used to call in many cases kinters, entering into kindergarten or the little zoo garden of Earth, in many cases come from distant areas and planets that need to learn what it is to find ego and physical reality. They journeyed so long in the heavenly thought planes that they found very few planets willing to accept them and not completely hurt them, by which they could experience what we call physical reality. The mother and father combining in thought as well as in physical coitus generate energies by which these thought forms, based on their level of radiation, are drawn into the cycle of birth. Therefore, the time of coitus and union is important if it is to propagate through the birth canal, through what is called the lower vibratory canal, the way of being born on a planet such as Earth. Drugs and anything like drugs that curtail the ability of the soul to know self at the time of conception pulls in lower energies without question. That is why the drugs are necessary, and many souls made their entrance on the drugged mind, which was proliferated by the state to stop individual souls from becoming great. Thus you had your Dr. Spocks and no whipping. You had using of drugs and doing anything you thought and having copious coitus during that time so that those lower entities could come into our planet uncontrolled. They have, and they have brought forth their kind. Those unchecked children are now the scientists of the day with very little spiritual insight because they had parents with very little wisdom. As a consequence now, these earthbound souls are holding back the progression of this planet. And they come in at a time when the earth needs to have no souls bound, but the freest thinking, most spiritual souls necessary to upgrade the planetary vibrations and stop the earth from being annihilated. It's just that simple. Because of this, of those who ducked out, shall we say, before from Sirius, they now must make a stand. Because the ones from the Pleiades who have very little to gain because they have lost their ability for souls and have very few herbs by which they can breed upon and feed off of the fear and death that goes with such breeding, they're on their way out. They're coming back one more time to try and rectify that by trying to get you to accept souls and make children of their breeding so that they will have a place to stay. It's just that simple. The souls that you now call children are probably older than you and have wisdom beyond yours, but they did not have a chance to prove it. When you don't have to fight an enemy, you can brag a lot. When you have to fight the battle, you must come off of the theory and put it into practice. They look for the practice here on the earth, one of the best planets to bring in physical reality to a norm. Those children have a lot to teach you, but they must first be made to unlock their reservoirs of regenerative energy, which we call psychic patterns, through what is called, again, reliving past lives, or through the birth canal when they talk directly to the carrier or mother, or through physical sight, which unlocks the little programs hidden in the subconscious of both, which we call the right brain. Not only will that make everybody more honest and more psychic, but will stop the entrance anymore of lower vibratory individuals, because those souls will respect coitus and understand that going along with it is a need for complete mind control of their own. If they are not allowed, since they are very harsh creatures, inasmuch as they did not understand lies and did not understand dualities, they will fight to the death to stop that from proliferating through them, and therefore they seek guidance. If the guidance comes from you, the parent, they will accept it. If it comes from the state, they will not accept it, and the state will have to have a showdown, but the state knows that they came here as warriors because they did not know what untruth was. Having in many cases also a secondary means of energies, or people who were lied to before, who were made to be earthbound because they were not told the truth, they also could not graduate to the higher heavens and further classroom teachings. They resented what happened to them and came back very angry and wanted to return quickly. The tape, Drugs, and the Astral will explain to you about the 4 levels of the astral plane and of the higher mental planes, and even to the aid of what is called the odic plane. I can only say, without staying here for 3 or 4 more hours or 3 or 4 more days, which you wouldn't want me to do anyway, that the souls are old. There are no new souls being created at this time to enter into the planet Earth's density. They are here for relearning or to exercise the truth that they think is real, and they look for you either for guidance or they actually will destroy you. They are strong. One thing they have in common: some are extremely bad, some are extremely good at birth, but one thing is for sure: they are all strong. They do not accept weakness, they do not understand weakness, and in many cases they are very angry that they're here in the first place. Without direction, you're building an army for the evil negativities referred to as the devil. With direction, you're building the umbilical cord for the angels to transit not only to Lyra and to Sirius, but even beyond this cosmos and into the pure thought realms. They make you better for having had them, but they challenge you because they make you be right. They make you think, and they take time. If you don't have time, don't bring them in. In conclusion, I simply state this: what you've heard tonight is different. What you've heard tonight in many cases rings bells that you know are true, and for others rings bells that say break. To kind of summate what I say, I would like to have you bear with me, if you will, for about maybe 10 minutes, as I would like to read 3 poems. I'll try to make them brief, but I think they kind of summate in poetry what I've tried to say to you in prose. One is called simply Mother Earth. Now, in this age of unisex, neuter gender, and the like, it really no longer matters where the bar rests on the bike, and hetero and homo are not adjectives but nouns. And as we really start to look at it, it can be quite profound, for if Earth is a mother, she undoubtedly has a child, and attempt to hurt her offsprings may most definitely drive her wild. Now we say we are God's children and He watches over us, Well, if he's still tight with mother, it may even cause him to fuss. But then we must consider whether he is really she. And in calling Earth our mother, we may be offending a he. My, what with atom bombs, tornadoes, famines, floods, and earthquakes too, I really can't afford to offend a parent. Now can you? Now our sun reversed polarity in 1959, and if it changed from our father, we may never get to shine. Yet if we really ponder this situation, it can come completely mad. For if our earth changes her sex, we may lose what we never had. Now, I hope this is not as confusing to you as it's beginning to get to me, for since the sons of God, so the daughters of men, it's been heterosexually. I truly don't know the answer, for we each must find our truth, but I have been taught without mothers and dads that there can be no youth. Yet maybe that is the answer in crystal clarity, for if we offend no one's mother and castigate no one's dad, we may all reach polarity. Thank you. Number 2, which I simply call reason. A man once sat in the garden of life, and he viewed first the sun, then the moon. While enraptured by splendors, he longed for a wife. Needing balance, he prayed she come soon. A woman attracted by Earth's blue-green glow did magnetically enter its gate, then deciding to tarry a while ere she go, her longing heart craved for her mate. Looking skyward at heavens and firmament wide, they realized all parts must be one, recognizing a burning and growing inside, to be whole and yet sums of the sun. For each tiny comet, each vortex and sphere, each galaxy, cosmos, and nebulae only led them to know their Creator was near, and it stripped them of ego and the personal I. As in nature, whose rhythms and balances flow, making love to all creatures on high or below, as in humans whose self numbers only to 7, they must find their mates if they e'er find their heaven. And now on earth, can truly begin to see the balance that love brings to all. We will make mistakes till we search deep within for ourselves the best mate of all. And then finally, in summation, human. O magnificent beast on this strange enchanted land, you roam your asphalt jungle clothed in skin that we call man, insensitive, incredulous, incongruous to all of God's created works that you find both large and small. Just how long can you travel in your self-appointed web of total make-believe about who and what was said, changing who, changing how, and what was in antiquity as the whole world comes to know how you've lied of history? By distortion, deletion, deception, and disguise, you've altered written records from the cosmos to our skies. You've reconstructed universes and summoned even hell, and there seems to be no end to the lies your mouth can tell. What you view on graphs and prisms, what you see in lens and scope seems too staggering to your mind and ego brain, and so to cope, you distort the very heavens. You'll change the smallest beast. There's nothing you won't do to let your fame increase, and yet you know within, from the most unto the least, that your time is running out, and your lies they soon must cease. As we view each bright new morning, even through polluted skies, we know there is a Creator, for creation never lies. And so we come together, we New Agers tried and true, seeking blessings from our Creator and divine release from you. I thank you and good night. If there are those of you who wanted to spend on time for about 20 minutes, for those of you who have this burning question that you want to talk about, please don't ask. If there are those of you who have some short need for consultations tomorrow while I'm still in the city, or would want to contact us later, or have a one-liner that we can maybe deal with, then I will accept those again. Either way, I do thank you very much. I wish to thank also Moana Tour, the brother and his wife who invited me here to Philadelphia. Many of you talked about it, but you didn't do it. He did, and I hope that you will support him as he brings other speakers in. For me, it's been a ball, and to see this many people come out in 2 days of bitter cold is very much reassuring to my heart, and I thank you also for that. Sorry. Somebody wanted that? Okay, I've been asked by my inviter to do a demonstration, if possible, about the diodes. I did this last night. I wasn't going to do it tonight. Since he's asked, I guess I can't say no. It's just a demonstration showing you the power of the diode. Since many of you question, since it's so small, can it work? It will be done right here up front. I'll probably just come down there. So if you want to stay around for that demonstration, fine. Let me again reiterate, I would like not to leave with the tapes. I don't take it as a direct insult. I just simply say that to me, what's on these tapes for the price I'm now offering is worth buying. Again, the Drugs in the Astro, which goes for $14.95, I'm selling for $10. Okay, I'll put it aside for you. Okay. The AIDS 1 and 2, which sell for $14.95 a piece, I'm selling for $10 a piece. And the Mind Control in America, or Altered States, that one, I'm selling again for $14. All right? Okay. I'm sorry. Pardon? I think there's one at the table. Yeah. You wanted which calculation? Drugs in the Astro?